All right, guys. So apparently Fidel Castro se murió. He died last night or some shit like that. As you can see, some might say I have a slight resemblance to Fidel Castro, but I got the beard going, the amazing beard. So, anyways, right before the election, I was doing an interview, and here's a quick clip from the interview. It actually had to do with my Cuban background, where my family comes from in Cuba, coming from Cuba, etc. I thought it would be a timely and relevant little snippet to offer you guys. So enjoy.
Considering these points, did they flee from the communism in Cuba? Is that how they ended up in the States, if you don't mind me asking?
They literally did, actually. I think it's a kind of sad that I wasn't really informed the history of how my grandfather got to America, but I heard little tidbits over the years, and one of the things I heard was that my grandfather was like some anti-Castro rebel or something. And it's ridiculous because I didn't learn this until the day my grandfather died. I was
Oh,
literally
it's a shame.
we're at the funeral home and we're all telling stories about the guy, and then that comes up, and I'd never known it. So my entire life, my grandfather was like this, supposedly, from what I hear anyways, he was like this, fairly, I don't know if he was like a main anti-Castro rebel, but he was certainly active. And I didn't know it until he died. But either way, yeah, they did fight against communism. I believe my grandfather had to like get on a plane illegally and like escape because he was a pilot. He was like a pilot or something like that. So he had to like my grandfather had to steal a plane, or he was like contracted to, because Cuba used to have, they used to do stuff with the Russians or the Soviet Union. You probably heard about that historical fact. So I think my
Sure.
grandfather was somehow, he was chartered to like send goods, smuggle goods into Russia, some crazy shit like that. And he had to expatriate to the United States. So I think he had protection from the U.S. because he was basically, I forget the exact word for that, when you're sort of, I guess exiled might be the term.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so yeah, there is definitely an anti-communist string in my background where I come from. I wish I knew more about that. I probably should ask my dad. Maybe he knows. But yeah, definitely anti-communism was something that goes back through my Cuban background.
So, with that in mind, how do you feel about overall immigration? I don't know how things are in Miami. I've heard some things that it's pretty bad. And obviously, as you said before, you brought this up yourself in terms of the fact that the demographics is changing tremendously fast in America. Unfortunately, the same thing is true in Europe. But obviously, you're on the same page with Trump, right? When it comes to his idea of
Mhm.
building a wall and protecting that again. I mean, how do you feel about that kind of open border policy that they're pushing from the opposition?
It's a good question. I think it depends who's coming to your country. Now, technically, if you look at Cuba's history, if anybody's seen the movie Scarface, uh, Cuba kind of they literally opened up the prisons and insane asylums, and they let a bunch of maniacs kind of come over here. So
Right.
that sort of reminds me of, when Trump says Mexico is not sending their finest, sort of reminds me of what happened in the 80s when Castro wasn't sending his finest. And so it's interesting. On one level, you might say, well, Chris, you're Cuban. If Donald Trump's policy existed, you'd still be in Cuba. Well, no, Donald Trump never said he was opposed to immigration. He's talking about illegal immigration. So yeah, I totally agree. Um, Again, it goes back to self-interest. It goes back to America first. It goes back to me as an individual. Every night, I close my door and I lock it. Okay. I want there to be a secure border around where I live because I, as an individual, want to protect myself. So that should extrapolate outward to the collective nation that you're a part of. So yeah, the country should have borders. But that doesn't mean, just because I lock my door at night, doesn't mean that I don't let people in on occasion. Doesn't mean that I don't, let friends come into my home. I do, but I have to know these people first. I have to trust them. It's the same damn principle when you're talking about a country, when you're talking about building border walls. So to me, it's a sort of this extrapolation of individual self-interest, extrapolated out to the collective self-interest of the country. So I'm totally on board with Trump's immigration plan.
First, second, and third generation Mexicans are just beyond reproach. Spectacular, spectacular, hardworking people. I have such great respect for them and their strong values of family, faith, and community. We all share a common interest in keeping our hemisphere safe, prosperous, and free.